Okay, Bonita, it is so great to see you. I'm so thrilled to talk to you about this book. Before we get started, though, can you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Bonita T. Hampton Smith. I am in this space. I am an author. This is my third book. I'm also the Chief Operating Officer at the King Center in Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. And the name of your book, I know you want to hold it up so people can see.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to put it close. It's
So beautiful.
Dear White Woman, Dear Black Woman. This is a tapestry of letters of hope and healing, letters that are compiled by white women who wrote letters to Black women and Black women who wrote letters to white women. So that's the title, Dear Black Woman, Dear White Woman. And thank you, Ripples Media, for this amazing cover design. Just the whole process has been amazing. So thank you, Jeff, for you and your amazing team at Ripples Media. You all rock tremendously.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, as you know, well, I had nothing to do with it. It was the team.
Well, you
But
could. It was your seed. We're live on planting seed, so it was a seed.
yeah, well, I mean, and I will say, and I want you to in a minute sort of set the stage for the book, and then we'll sort of dive into a bunch of. I mean, I have too many questions for the time we have, but I will say that when you agreed to let us be your publishing partner, it was a bit of a dream come true for me because one of
Oh,
the, when I started Ripples Media, I was writing leadership books. They were purpose driven, but it was leadership books. And then some of my friends in business and marketing were like, hey, I'd love, I've got a book idea. And so we sort of moved down that path, but I always wanted to also allow Ripples to help tell stories that maybe otherwise wouldn't be heard, or stories that will affect change and touch people's hearts. And so your book, which obviously I have an advanced copy of and was able to read, it was just amazing. And it belongs on my shelf with all the other greats that I've read around social justice and white supremacy. So we are honored and thrilled that you chose
oh,
us.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate those words, and I'm equally grateful. It's like I said, it's been an amazing journey. And I have this theme. I said the energy you put into something is the energy that people will get out of it. And if that's the case with this project and working with your team, it's going to be an exponential return and just an amazing seed going forth in the culture and the climate and this universe. So thank you.
I love it. Yeah, I saw that in the acknowledgments. Yep, that was a great quote. Okay, so why don't we start with this? You have something which I love, and I'm going to consider for my future books. You have a statement of intent at the beginning.
Yeah.
Would you mind reading that? I think that was the best. As I thought about this conversation, I think that's the best way to set the stage for what it is that you set out to do.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to get my co pilot glasses here.
Mhm.
So, the statement of intent, this collection of letters represent the heartfelt and personal experiences of both white and Black women, each sharing their unique perspectives and lived realities. These letters have been left in their unique form without editing or curation to serve as a collective reflection and create space for understanding, empathy, and connection. Our intention is not to speak for anyone, but to invite readers into the individual's journey and reflections of these women, exploring the complexities of identity, race, and personal experiences. Each letter is a window into a specific life and viewpoint, offered in the hope of fostering dialogue, compassion, and greater awareness. We approach this collection with humility and deep respect, understanding that these letters are part of a broader ongoing conversation about race, gender, and humanity. We encourage you to read with an open mind and an open heart, embracing the diversity of voices and the wisdom they offer.
Amazing. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And I would say, as I went through reading the letters, I feel like that's what this did. There's a good friend of mine in town. You may know him, Dr. Terrence Lester. One of the things he talks about is that I quote all the time is he says proximity changes everything. And
Mm.
the closer you can get to other people, to people with different experiences, the more you can learn and the more empathy builds in your heart.
Yeah.
And as I read this book, I'm not a white woman or a Black woman, and it was so insightful for me to read through this. And I was just struck by your ability to create an obvious safe place of trust to allow these women to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so could you maybe talk about that for a moment? Like, how did you create that safe environment?
Yeah. So I will have to say that the first thing I did was invited people that I know care about this work. And so there were four beautiful, amazing, courageous women: Jen Graham, Dr. Bonita West, Dr. Angela Oxford, and Monique Rashawn. They all joined me, and we collectively reached out to women. And I think because we have spaces where people trust each of us, then they trusted us to make sure we steward their words and care for their stories and treat them in the right way. And so I definitely have to give honor and space to Jen and Angela and Vanetta and Rashawn for all joining me and inviting, circles into this space. And so I think building those relationships allowed me to invite other people in to trust us with the journey. So I knew that this work was bigger than me when I started it. It wasn't about me. And in fact, some of the proceeds are going to one of Dr. West has this initiative in Liberia where she's building a school. So everything about this project is absolutely bigger than me. We're right now trying to think of a way of profit sharing with all the contributors, because it can also become like an economic empowerment tool where we can show collectivism works, and that we can share in spaces, and it can be empowering in more ways than one. So this is just so much bigger than me, Jeff. And so the way we created a safe space is the trust that we had initially with the circle of influence that we all have.
It's beautiful. And you talk about your relationship with Jen, and I believe Jen was who connected us to you. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Jen. I'm so grateful for, because we started this project in 2021 and we were collecting letters. And so you get busy with life, and she she emailed me. She said, Bonita, it's time to get ready to do this project. It's a perfect timing. And she said, I believe I have a company that would work with you. And so yes, she introduced me with you all. She's walked with me throughout the entire process and been such an amazing cheerleader. But I also, Jen and I have a level of intentionality in our relationship. We said, okay, if we're going to do this book, we need to also be an example of what it looks like to build real authentic relationship, Black woman, white woman, and sharing spaces. Do we always agree? No. But that's the goal, right? Is to create a level of understanding. And I say understanding because it goes beyond understanding. It's emotionally putting yourself in that space and accepting the wisdom and knowledge that that space offers you, and you internalize it as opposed to intellectualizing it. So we've committed to that journey. And so we wanted to be a living example that we can build authentic relationships and get to know each other in powerful ways and do something good for humanity.
I love it. I love it. It seemed to me that reading through the letters, there was a genuine sense from both sides of, vulnerability, building, breaking through, I would say, sort of walls, but also building relationships. And, some of them were very poignant and very like, hey, I'm not going to mince words,
Right.
and which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read some passages that I really felt were important. But I guess one question I have for you is, as you went through this process and received these letters, like, was there anything that surprised you during the process?
I don't think there were any. Well, there was one surprise. I think it was an epiphany. And it was a letter, and I wish I remembered her name, but it was a letter from a white woman, and she said, when I think about it, I get a little choked up, but she said, basically, she was saying, we are told that we still can't speak now, or my story, I can't share my story now. I have to put it on the back burner because we have to make space, and I understand that there is a space that you have to make for people who are marginalized, but I never thought about white women who also are dealing with things and need a space too, a space to share, hurt, pain, things that they're dealing with. But if you're told not now, it's not your turn, hold back, someone else needs to get in front of you. And you're saying, but what about me? And so I had that was like a profound epiphany for me. And yeah, I just really appreciated hearing that and understanding that.
Yeah. You know, as I read, you know, the reason that you decided to kick this off and work on this project, my memory of it was that you said that in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, that you felt like this should be part of your journey. And I can't remember if you say in the book, but I'll ask you anyway to share with the listeners. Where did the idea for this come from? The idea of letters back and forth, which I think is just such a powerful way to deliver this message.
So, Jeff, I have to be so honest with you. As I shared in my intro, during the pandemic, my husband and I built this patio, and I started using it as a place of reflection. And I was inspired to do it. It was given to me during a time of meditation. It came from a space beyond me. And I just believe it was God inspired that really led me to do this. And I often reflect on Mrs. King's quote that women, if the soul of a nation is to be saved, then I believe you must become its soul. And so that really resonates with me as well. And so it was an inspired project, literally just came to me, right? And so I can't say that I was like so strategic or anything. It was inspired, and I agreed to steward it. And so that's just a honest truth. So yeah,
I love that. Yeah, and I think you talk about the fact that you sort of remember your mom having her cup of coffee and
oh
sitting and
yeah,
reflecting and speaking to God, and that's something
hmm
that you've been taking on.
yeah. My mother, every morning she would drink a cup of coffee, and so I would see her. She would read her Bible. She would drink a cup of coffee, and now that she's gone, I feel like that time of sitting in the morning, just gathering myself, synchronizing, just becoming congruent. I understand why she would do that in the morning, just setting your pathway, your intentionality, and reflecting and just really synchronizing with God. So yeah, I get that from my mother, and I tip it off with a cup of coffee, and just like but except my mother didn't like a lot of cream. I like a lot of cream and sugar in my coffee. So I got a taste of my father and my mother. My daddy liked it black with a lot of sugar. My mother liked it slightly cream with hardly no sugar. So I'm a blend of both. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay, I do want to get into sharing some passages that really kind of stuck with me and get your thoughts. I will say, you know, one book that I don't know if you've read, Mediocre by Ijeoma Oluo.
No, I will put that
It's
on my to-do list.
it's amazing. It's about it's funny because it's about the mediocrity of white males. So it
Okay.
really was powerful for me when I read it many years ago. Yeah, so I would recommend anyone check it out. I don't know if you need to, but a lot of my listeners might benefit from it. But it struck me as I read your book and the stories that were told, that it just really forced a lot of reflection in me.
Mhm.
And so I just want to thank you again for that, because I think that's needed. A lot of the things that I read in the book were things that I wasn't aware of. And again, there's a quote that I'll share in a minute from one of the women who wrote a letter where she talks about that a bit. But like, I think like going back to proximity changes everything. Like this kind of book will change hearts and minds. And I think especially for, you know, white people, white men, it's like, these are things I wasn't even aware of. So I just want to thank you
Mm,
again for that
yeah.
opportunity.
And I'm so glad to hear from a white male's perspective, even a male's perspective, that you were able to sit with the book. And that's one of the things that Dr. Morrow shared in her forward, that this is an opportunity for men to understand, you know, what women are dealing with, because we're all in relationship together. We're all interconnected. And so just to hear you say that, I'm just profoundly grateful that, you know, that what she shared in the forward, you're
Mm.
really vocalizing it right now. And just grateful for that it was impactful in that way. And the thing we also did, Jeff, and I think you saw it at the end of the book, we created some questions for people to reflect on. And we
Mhm.
created some questions if people want to have a book club. So it gives you an opportunity to reflect on a lot of the letters as you read through.
Yeah, and you've obviously got an expert in Jen Graham on those kind of conversations, which I thought was perfect.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, we could cheat. We
yeah,
have an expert, content writer for questions,
right.
and yeah.
I did want to say too. I know Akate Kern is one of the women who wrote a letter in your book, and she gave me a book several years ago called "I'm Not Yelling," and it is a book about Black women and their experience in America. And so, like, you know, I know you didn't gift me this book, but you did in a way, and her giving me that and me reading it and just like everything in it was new to me. And then reading through your stories, I just think like these conversations need to be had, and the fact that you got these conversations out in such an impactful way is going to be great. And I do encourage anyone to consider getting together with people and having more of these conversations in person.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely hope and believe that it will start a major dialogue. I believe it'll start a major dialogue throughout the nation, and I'm looking forward to hearing more stories. We're going to create a pathway for people to submit additional letters, because I know that there are things that people are going to want to share. So we're going to make that possible as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to read a couple of things here. So here's a passage that I thought was really important. It says, "We have confused guilt with responsibility. I have never wanted white women to feel guilty for history or to be rendered stagnant because of the burden of the destruction caused by white supremacy across the globe. However, I do earnestly hope that we will one day grasp the power of responsibility. Even if a white woman is not racist in measurable, seen actions, the current condition of humanity, with much of the injustice being the result of a hierarchy of white supremacy, beckons white women to demonstrate a sense of responsibility for moving humanity forward." One of the things is I've
Dr.
been,
West.
you know what? I didn't write who each one was.
It seemed like I remember that letter.
It probably was. I just want to just comment on that. You know, as I talked, so I went through an experience in Leadership Atlanta in 2012, 2013, where I would say my eyes were opened to my privilege. And it started with a deep conversation, a 2-day race awareness workshop. And so since then, I've been trying to be an ally and trying to, do the right thing when it comes to fighting against the system that I, propagate. And so as I've talked to other white men about that, it is very hard to get them through. Well, I don't feel guilty about that because, I didn't, create slavery, or I didn't, suppress anyone, and so it's, to me, what stood through in this message, and I think I might even have another one coming up, but like, it's not about trying to make you feel guilty. It's about trying to show you that you do have a responsibility, and that you do have power, and you do have a voice in rooms that, other people might not. And so it's using your voice to help make change. But people get so caught up in the guilt of it. And I don't know your thoughts on that, but I thought several times through this reading, the letters by Black women to white women, that really hit me as like, gosh, that's such an important point.
Yeah. And the key word is responsibility, because we all have a responsibility for humanity. And I think understanding interrelatedness and interconnectedness, then I understand, Jeff, that I am connected to you. There's an African saying, Ubuntu, I am because of you. And so I think, though, and I can't speak because I'm not a white male, but I think there also needs to be an understanding of what are white males saying. What is it that we need to hear so that we can get an understanding of the white male's perspective, so that we can get beyond any barriers that keep us from being interconnected, keep us from being this, I call it this tapestry of humanity, where we're all working together for the collective good. What are those barriers, and what can I understand, Jeff, about your journey that's keeping you from looking around the table and seeing who's missing and what's missing? What's keeping you from doing that? Because there has to be a inroad there somehow. And I think we can't force it upon anyone. Everybody's responsible for their own evolution. But I do believe that if we all start to embrace a love-centered culture, a love-centered consciousness, then we'll get beyond all the isms. Because if I'm love-centered in my consciousness, then I'm going to seek to treat not only Jeff well, I'm going to treat the next person well, the female well, the gay person well, the transgender person well. We're going to seek to just to do well by people. And so I think that love-centered consciousness, to me, is the root to getting to dealing with a lot of these isms. I think we keep dealing with the byproducts. We keep dealing with things that are a byproduct of dealing with the deeper issue. If I go back to my original DNA of being love-centered, then the byproduct is an inclusive world. The byproduct is a belonging world. The byproduct is care. The byproduct is that I'm not going to be racist or because I am love conscious in my thinking. And all things considered, I am going to be love conscious in my thinking. And even at the King Center, we call it nonviolence, love-centered way of thinking, acting, speaking, and engaging that leads to personal, societal, and cultural transformation. So I think there's a bigger question, and that is, what's keeping you from getting to your love consciousness? What's keeping you from being love-centered? Because the byproduct is that you will seek to treat all people well. And I think we keep trying to force people to treat people well, and you're not even well on the inside. Do the internal work first. Do that work, and then that's going to be an outcome.
I love it. That sounds like maybe your next book. I don't know what you're working on over there.
Well, I have been thinking about this love-centered culture. I mean, because I think so many people are hung up on diversity, equity, inclusion, which are simply byproducts of a love-centered culture. When you have a culture that's love-centered, it's going to have everybody at the table. You have diversity of thought and individual. You're going to have representation. You're going to treat people well. You're not going to leave people out. You're going to think about when you go into communities, you're going to make sure you're causing no harm. And so because you're love-centered and all things are considered in a love-centered consciousness.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So this was written by a white woman. And actually this is a concept that, quite frankly, I struggle with a little bit, at the beginning thing that she says. So I'm going to read the whole paragraph and then I'll share. So she says, "Forgive me for placing the continued burden of making me more comfortable and unscathed while learning about the experience my culture inflicts on you. Know that I know more of what I did not know. It is clear, and I am more aware. I have a pickaxe, and I am here chipping away at the cemented foundation of white supremacy that has given me a steadied life and racked a burden around yours." First of all, you have some incredible writers that wrote these letters. I mean, goodness gracious, that is awesome. The thing that I struggle with, so I love all of that. And I always, like when I say that my eyes opened, I realize I'll never fully be able to be aware of, this whole, I can't possibly, but I can continue to try to, as she says, have my pickaxe and chip away. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I struggle with, and I'd love your thoughts on is, it is a difficult position to figure out, okay, how much of asking you, Bonita, to educate me and help me get better. It's not your problem. It's my problem. And so again, like writing a book like this, I think helps, but I don't want to put the burden on people of color to help me figure this out. Right. So how do you, when you hear those words, how do you respond to that?
So it's twofold. I think anything you want to learn about, if you want to become an engineer, you go to school, you study it. If you want to become a doctor, you go to school and study it. I also tell married couples, if you want to get along with your spouse, you study them and you learn their ways. And so if it's something you really care about, you're going to do the work. And that's just life. People do what they want to do. And so if you really care about understanding, racism or dismantling unjust systems, then you will do the work. There will be an intentionality on your part. So you have a responsibility. I also say that when we're in relationship with people, I equally have a responsibility of sharing when you may have said or done something that has made me uncomfortable. And so I think there's a twofold participation, but there is an onus on you to learn the very thing you want to change. You study it. You learn about it, educate yourself. And if this is something you really care about, I agree that the responsibility is on you to seek it out, to study it, to engage and to practice so that you can be, I don't say an anti-racist practitioner. Again, I say a person who practices love in action.
I love it. Thank you. There's some, as I mentioned, I think some of the letters written specifically by Black women to white women, I think they were honest and they really kind of let it out. Some I feel like, maybe pulled their punches a little bit, but some were like, hey, here's the thing. So there's one letter, I'm going to read 2 sentences. The first, I think, hits on, sort of just like, we need this blunt language and this blunt conversation to really break down walls. But then the second thing, I think, is like one of the most powerful statements in the whole book. So she says, every day we, meaning Black women, every day we break through the glass ceilings while white women are busy marinating in their proximity to white men. Whew. And then the second thing she said, which I just think like is so, so powerful. She said, you have remained silent in rooms where everyone listened to you. There's so much in that statement. My gosh, that's a great statement.
Yeah.
How would you react?
Yeah, it's very profound. And I think one of the people who really, I guess, learned to address that, we were in conversation with Lady Gaga on this show that I produced for the King Center called Beloved Community Talks. And Lady Gaga said she became an interrupter, or maybe she said a disruptor. Either way, she interrupted conversations and she just became an interrupter. And so when I hear you reading that, it's a commitment to, like you say, looking around the room and say, who's missing? Looking around the room and say, there are voices that are absent. And that could also mean people who are present and still not being heard, because we practice a lot of about inclusiveness, but I have been included on guest lists and still don't feel I belong. And so the question is, going beyond inclusion, study to see if the environment is conducive to people feeling as if they belong as well. And so, yeah, I've seen it, but you probably can tell by just engaging me. I'm kind of one of those people that will say something. I remember early in my political career when a question was asked of me in a room, and I shared my ideas, and this older lady pulled me aside and she said, you're not supposed to just talk like that, right? I was like, I thought we were supposed to have honest dialogue, I'm just, because you have to make people aware of what's happening in the room. If you're in a conversation, interrupt it if you know it's being harmful to someone. Just recently, I've been embracing something I heard from Ivanka Trump, which is Lashon Hara. You may have heard of it, but it's cognizant of evil speech of any kind, speaking badly about anyone at any time. And some people consider it as harmful as murder, because you can ruin people with the words that you speak over them. So being very conscious of our engaging with other people is our responsibility. So yeah, when I hear that letter and you read it, and this woman is expressing how we're in spaces where we just don't speak up for people. That's just the one thing that you can do. Yeah. That's the one thing that you can do, especially when you're in a space of influence, leadership, or power. That's the one thing you can do. Be an advocate.
Yes. So true. And in this next passage, I think this will be the last one that I read, and then I'm going to ask you to read sort of the ending. But this last one, I think, also hits on, again, what I would go back to, that responsibility that maybe falls on this white women, but white people. So this says, but this letter isn't about pointing fingers. It's about inviting you to recognize the privilege you hold and to think about how you can use that for good. Yes, white women have certain privileges that come with being part of a system that wasn't built with women like me in mind. But here's the thing, that privilege can also be a powerful tool for change. When you're invited to sit at the table, and I know you've worked hard to get there, you have the opportunity to make sure that someone like me has a seat too. Mm-hmm. Again, like, goodness, these women that wrote these letters, it's like they all have, English degrees or something. It's fantastic writing. Gosh, it's powerful. but that idea that like, you know, when you're invited to sit at the table and then acknowledging, and I know you've worked hard to get there, but then you have the opportunity to make sure that someone like me has a seat too.
Mhm.
I just, you know, I think that's like, as we talked about earlier, like, you know, how do, for instance, white men, you know, how are they reacting to, you know, those three letters, DE and I, and what's happening in the world today? It can be as simple as just looking in around the room and saying,
Mhm.
you know what, we all look the same. And why is that?
Yeah.
That's when I've broken through with some of my white male friends. It's been when I've asked that question. Okay, why is that? You know,
Yeah.
why is the population of our prisons the way it is? You know, let's just start with that question. And when you do that in these rooms and you're in like a networking event and you see, it does start to reframe how you can get involved and help. So I just thought, like, again, like so many of these letters, and I have so many highlighted passages, but like, it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
And again, like, thank you for allowing for people to share these stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's our lives, right? These are the things we wake up with and we sit with. And as I was sharing, when I was watching George Floyd, and I shared this in my introduction, it was literally the first time I'd seen someone just actually be brutally murdered. I'd never seen that other than on some crazy action film or movie. And so that was it profoundly impacted my life. And I asked the question, what can I do? And so when you're in those rooms, once you notice it, you ask the question, what can I do? I believe that we're all called to answer questions in this universe. And the question I have is, what question are you called to answer? What solution are you called to bring to the whole? Because we all have part of the whole to contribute to. We all have our part to contribute to the whole, rather. And my question is, what's your part? What solution do you bring to the table? Because you're not in those rooms for no reason. You're in the room. So if you're in the room and something's wrong, something's uncomfortable, what can you do? What's your responsibility? And if we start with those questions and then get back to our love-centered consciousness, I believe we'll see this world. I'm not a doom and gloom person. I'm not going to speak a lot of doom and gloom. People feel like, oh, a lot's going to happen. I believe what will happen is what we put forth in our intentionality as a whole. And so I believe when you're in those rooms, you ask yourself, what can I do? Put forth that intentionality and be the change you want to see. And that's one of the things that Dr. Bernice King, who put an endorsement on the back of the book, she said, once you read all this, then decide to be the change. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. I'd like to end with, if you would read, I think it might be literally the last paragraph in the book. It starts with the ultimate goal is.
Oh, let's see.
I thought that was such a, like, it's just a beautiful ending to this amazing book. It should be like the
Oh,
ultimate
yeah.
goal is to
Okay. The
dismantle.
ultimate goal. Okay. The ultimate goal is to dismantle all the isms that separate us and create a healthy foundation and space for all women, regardless of race, a space where everyone can listen, learn, and grow together. Let us commit to continuing this heartfelt dialogue and creating a beautiful tapestry woven with threads of transparency, truth, and love. Let us continue to create and share safe spaces to build bridges of understanding and forgiveness. In this urgent and critical hour, let us answer the call to protect the future of our children by creating a world where love prevails. Dear white woman, dear Black woman, it is possible to become and heal the soul of a nation.
That is a world I want to live in. Thank you so much for this project, for bringing this into the world, again, for allowing us to be your partner on this. I'm going to be recommending it to everybody. I believe it comes out on, is it February 4th? Is that correct?
February 4th. Pre-sales are available now. Ripples Media. Yeah.
Yep, I've got the link in the show notes, so anyone can go. I've made my pre-order, but I just I just thank you so much, and I'm so excited for more and more people to get a chance to experience this and hear your words and hear the women in this book's work. It's amazing. So I appreciate everything you're doing to be the change that you want to see in the world. It's very inspiring.
And thank you, Jeff. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast, and thank you again and Ripples Media for partnering with me on this project. It's because of you all that these stories, these women, their journeys will be shared, and we will all grow and go. And I believe we will make the world that much better just by starting this very necessary dialogue. So thank you so much. And thank you for reading the book and just really taking it all in. So I really appreciate that. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. And the honor was ours. So, all right, everybody, go get a copy, order some for your friends. It's available for pre-order. Bonita, I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you, Jeff.